institutions, for all these institutions out there that day in, day out, they do perp trading, and they might stick to one asset, Bitcoin. If you do it on a yield-bearing Bitcoin standard, you will beat out all of the others Bitcoin perp traders you can see in the market. And so those will slowly start to figure out, hey, I can actually get very high returns right there. And so it will be institutions, it will be individuals, people who are like more native to DeFi, but also hardcore Bitcoin maxis. Because the one thing a hardcore Bitcoin maxi want, and I am one myself, is I want more Bitcoin. And this is the more cleanest way anyone can get more Bitcoin. Let all traders trade. Let meme coiners trade their meme coins, burn Bitcoin transaction fees. Let all the rest of the people do whatever they want, and you can get more Bitcoin, just like that. So I think it will come from all different sides.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And if there's one thing any Bitcoiner likes to hear, it's they get to keep their Bitcoin while also getting more of it. So that sounds like certainly a win-win right off the jump. And right now, STBTC yield, as we mentioned, comes from network activity. Do you see that pool of activity and therefore the yield growing as Bitcoin finance continues to mature?
Well, it's actually it's a double sword. So the yield level depends on two different factors, right? The number of transactions and the transaction fees. And the second one is how much Bitcoin is staked. Today, the Bitcoin yields with a very low amount of Bitcoin staked is 30%. Next week, we will open up this cap. So in order to ensure high Bitcoin yields, we have basically capped the amount of STBTC. That will ensure that we can get at least 5-6% yields in essence. Next week, we will open the cap to a higher level. So we will always run at around 5 to 6% Bitcoin yields. Now, no worries, if the STBTC cap is filled, you can still buy it on decentralized exchanges. You can still borrow and get STBTC on borrowing lending protocols. So there's a bunch of different ways you can still access it. But in essence, having the total STBTC capped in the beginning on a certain level allows the yields to be high for a long period of time, which is exactly what we want. Because the big risk is that there's just one big whale comes in with a few $100 million and the yields are 0.1%. And so these two factors are the only factors that, that basically depend how much yield you get. We decided we want to be there for the early users. We want to have an economy that runs on 5-6% Bitcoin yields for years and years and years, hopefully 30 years from now, which at that point, the interest rates you have are like the risk-free interest rates. But we want to have high Bitcoin yields. And so that's why the STBTC is kept. If you're watching this, try to get some STBTC. Because we commit to high Bitcoin yields for a long prolonged period of time.
Yeah, I think there's one thing we can all agree on, right, gang? Is we want high Bitcoin yield. Everyone in the crowd here is nodding in approval. And with STBTC, the really game-changing thing, right, is you're basically turning Bitcoin into a productive asset as opposed to just a store of value. Which kind of begs the question, do you think this changes the way that institutions view Bitcoin? Maybe less like digital gold and more like digital bonds?
100%. That's how I want this to evolve. Like, this is not digital gold. And I hope the STBTC announcement is actually the point that people will start realizing, wait, yielding Bitcoin like natively in a singular asset that I can hold just like that, that does not sound like digital gold. In your mind, you see Bitcoin as this rock, right? Which does not yield. Mm-hmm. The moment you have yield-bearing Bitcoin that you can just hold, that no longer fixes in the people's minds. So we absolutely hope and believe this will be the game changer for Bitcoin finally growing up from digital gold to being a monetary asset.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you guys are really helping put in the big boy pants on Bitcoins. We're appreciative of that. But yield can sometimes be a double-edged sword, right? It attracts users, but it also attracts regulators. So how do you think STBTC fits into the current regulatory landscape we're seeing now?
I think at the moment it's very good. I mean, the regulatory landscape is looking at yielding Ethereum and at yielding Solana. What they're not looking at is yielding Bitcoin yet. But if you just expand from yielding Ethereum and yielding Solana, yielding Bitcoin is a very close step to that. So I actually think they will be very supportive of that, and maybe you might have a yield bearing Bitcoin ETF at some point.
That's true. A lot of exciting products that could be spun off as a result of this. And if STBTC does in fact become the standard, how do you see it reshaping the Bitcoin economy over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think this will absolutely explode. I think the Bitcoin economy is so wild to me right now. Like, you can borrow US dollars with centralized institutions in the financial markets, and your interest rates are 12%, 14%. You can look at the on-chain economy, go to an Aave, for example, on Ethereum, and you can borrow stable coins against wrapped Bitcoin at around 3%. So centralized institutions, 12%. Aave stablecoins against wrapped Bitcoin, 3%. Borrowing against yield-bearing Bitcoin, -%. And so this whole market is so inefficient. I no longer believe in the efficient market hypothesis, because the only way this can play out is that these rates will collapse, and people will start figuring out that, borrowing against yield-bearing Bitcoin, you'll beat anything you can find anywhere else. Yeah, this can go very fast in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And this all sounds very exciting, but again, as somebody who's been in the space themselves for a bit, I'm always a little initially skeptical of new products, as people are kind of the whole crypto and Bitcoin space. And obviously we're seeing that change as time goes on, and great new products like this are being developed. But for those in our audience who might still be skeptical, maybe they got a little scarred by Celsius or BlockFi, what's your pitch as to why STBTC is the real deal compared to some of these things we've seen in the past?
Yeah, no, that skepticism is absolutely rightfully there. I think the difference is this is open, permissionless, and clear for anyone to see how it works. And so if there would be absolutely something wrong with this, you would expect a whistleblower to actually showcase this. Like, we only run one node of the whole network, and the whole network is open, transparent, and permissionless, which is exactly the opposite of what was happening with centralized companies like Celsius and others. And I know a lot of people that got burned there myself. Luckily, I was able to tell a few of my friends to take out their funds. And I think the main difference is you have no clue what happens there. And this is completely the opposite. It's the on-chain economy. You can see everything. So that's the main difference. At the same time, there's also security risks, smart contract risks. But you can see in the current market, the most efficient liquid markets are the global permissionless on-chain markets. They are now on Ethereum and Solana. This is the first time you have it on Bitcoin. So if you are really a Bitcoin maxi, right, and this is maybe more an ideological argument, and you want to see Bitcoin become the money in the world, you have two options. Do you believe in the on-chain world, where you have your own keys, self-custody, or do you believe in the paper Bitcoin world? Because the biggest risk to me is that Bitcoin actually just becomes digital gold, and you will again have one United States dollar in redeemable with a bank for one Bitcoin. And so you just end up the path of gold that we already had. And so we don't want to do that. You want to make Bitcoin money. And so the only way to start doing that is to use it and make your Bitcoin productive. And so this is a very ideological reason. This is the reason I am building what I'm building. And it's also, a call to the people who believe what I believe to help us out.
Yeah, I certainly love the idea of putting my Bitcoin to work. It's just been sitting there doing nothing except appreciating value. But I want to put it to work now, and I'm excited that we have new products like what you guys are developing where we can actually do so. And something we started doing on this show since your last visit, Willem, is in very much in light of these new types of products being built for the Bitcoin ecosystem. 2025 has been a very exciting year between that, regulatory tailwinds, a lot of other good stuff happening right now. So what we've been doing is we've been asking all of our guests to give us their Price is Right price prediction for Bitcoin by the end of this year. This is not for financial advice. This is just for fun and games. And the winner, we're going to send a Roxom Patagonia to at the end of the year. Guys, if we can, we actually have a leaderboard with all of our most recent guesses in terms of what they think the price will be for Bitcoin. So if we can bring that up here in a second, guys. So I guess my question to you is, Willem, 2025, we're entering what's supposed to be the peak end of this cycle. Q4 is coming up, traditionally been a very positive quarter for Bitcoin. Here you can see our leaderboard. What is your price prediction for Bitcoin by the end of this year? We have as prices as high as Knut Svanholm said around 440. We had myself, I said 142, 143. Where do you think Bitcoin's going to be by the end of this year?
Why so bearish, Hank? I think we've only seen very.
I like to be surprised.
Yes,
I
think we've only seen very strong buyers here. Only very strong ones that have been buying that will hold for the long term. There's not been any craziness at all. So my price target will be right below Brandon. I think around 200K. So I'll put it at 199,999.
199,999. That is a Price is Right prediction if I have ever heard of one, and I hope I get to put that jacket on you myself, Willem. So we appreciate you playing that silly little game with us. Let's get back to camera one here. So, Willem, we've had a good chance to talk about this incredible and exciting new product that you'll be offering at Botanix. I'm sure you've got a ton of people in our audience that are like, you know what, I'm in, this sounds good. What do I got to do next to join? So tell them, where can I send them so that they can figure out if this is a good play for them and learn more?
Absolutely. It's very easy. Go to yield.botanixlabs.com and you will see it right there. You will see the current yields and you see everything you can start doing with your STBTC. You can start borrowing, you can start trading it, you can start providing liquidity to perp dexes. Everything in a very clean overview. If you want to get out, you instantly redeem back to Bitcoin. So yield.botanixlabs.com. And for all the skeptical people, we made the first question from the FAQ, or the frequently asked questions. Where does the yield come from? From the transaction fees. So all the information on yield.botanixlabs.com.
I love it. You're straightforward and transparent, just like Bitcoin has always meant to be. So we certainly appreciate you taking the time to, fill us in on this really exciting new development over with the Botanix Lab team. Willem, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, and we thank you for your time, expertise, and insight. And we hope to have you back really soon. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite, Hank.
Pleasure is all mine. We'll see you next time. And we'll be right back with more Blockchain Report right after this, so stay tuned. All right, we're back here with Matt from Start9. Matt, I want to start kind of at the beginning here, your origin story, before Start9, before sovereign computing. Where did this all begin? What first got you interested in technology and personal freedom?
I've always been interested in technology, and I've always been interested in freedom. I was a very obstinate child. I always had a problem with authority, not for its own sake, just because I wanted to understand, right? If someone said, do A, or A is correct, I would say, why? And explain it to me, right? Like, I just didn't like taking things on faith. I wanted to understand things. And if someone could convince me of something, then I would be convinced. And if somebody, if I had determined that somebody was worthy of my followership, if they were, good and honest and productive, and I had something to learn from them, then I was the best follower they could ask for, right? I loved having various mentors over the years. So I'm not against authority for its own sake. I'm just against the sort of faith in authority, where, anyone who has the right credentials can say what's the truth or what to do, and everyone just listens, right? So I'm fundamentally against that. Now, technology always just been an interest, but it wasn't until I started getting really political that the two began to click, right? So Ron Paul was my real introduction to politics. Prior to that, I had a very basic level of political understanding and history, and it was kind of like red, blue, and then I learned about libertarianism, libertarian philosophy, through Ron Paul and through Ayn Rand, and became convinced that some more fundamental change was necessary if we were going to build a truly kind of free and prosperous future for posterity. And I tried to do that, as many people would, through the political apparatus, just as Ron Paul did, right? So I was campaigning for Ron Paul in 2012, and I was very hopeful and optimistic about that campaign. I mean, he was packing college stadiums full of very, very smart, very enthusiastic young people chanting "End the Fed." And in my mind, I saw this as a viable path, right? I thought that Ron Paul was really going to make a difference. I thought he even had an outside chance of being elected president when he switched to the Republican Party and ran under that ticket. And I severely underestimated the degree of power wielded by the incumbents. And I watched what they did to Ron Paul. I watched how they shut down arguably the most powerful freedom movement in modern history. And they shut it down really with like the flick of a pen. It was very easy for them to shut Ron Paul down. Basically, they did so by not saying his name in any mainstream media outlet. And when they did say his name, they made sure to laugh. So if and only if they ever mentioned him, it was in a joking manner. They never took him seriously. But that actually tells me they were taking him very seriously, and that this was actually a tactic. But it worked really, really well. Most of America didn't even know that it was happening, and those that did know that it was happening were either laughing at it or being like, "Oh, that's nice, but he doesn't really have a chance." And I said, "Wow, how do you beat something like that? Like, how do you overcome something so powerful that it control the narrative with minimal effort?" And I, at the same time, or not exactly at the same time, but a couple years later, learned about Bitcoin. And I, once I kind of got it, I said, "Oh, there is the underbelly of the beast, right? There is its weakness is you don't need to come at it through the political apparatus. You chop it off at the knees. You undermine its source of power, right? What is the way in which all those media outlets were funded, right? Well, how is propaganda even possible? And it's all comes down to the money printer, right? The ability of governments to create money from nothing is their ultimate source of power, and Bitcoin is its ultimate antidote, the ultimate defense against that attack on the people. And so I became obsessed and devoted to doing everything that I could to making Bitcoin succeed. Bitcoin as Bitcoin, by the way, not what Bitcoin is starting to become in certain circles, which is this custodied, intermediated paper Bitcoin, situation. I want Bitcoin to be like gold, except, you know, transferable over the wire instantaneously around the world, but basically not a state issued asset or state controlled asset. I want Bitcoin to be open, permissionless, global distributed money as it was designed to be. And so I am on a mission to help make that happen in any way that I can. And in 2019, when we left SALT and we're thinking about what we wanted to do next, part of that discussion revolved around what could we do to help Bitcoin succeed. And for those who do not understand this layer of Bitcoin, what gives Bitcoin its decentralization at the core, right? There are lots of contributing factors to Bitcoin's decentralization, but the fundamental one is node operatorship. It's people running Bitcoin nodes and using them to verify and conduct financial activity. And at the time and today, there are very few people around the world running Bitcoin nodes, right? It's just not an insanely popular thing by comparative standards, right? There's a few dozen thousand people running Bitcoin nodes, and that's it. But there's billions of people in the world, so it's a minuscule number. And if we want Bitcoin to remain decentralized, we need more people running nodes, more people using those nodes. And so we asked ourselves, what is preventing people from running a Bitcoin node? And one of the main reasons that people were not running a Bitcoin node, aside from just ignorance of the matter altogether, was its difficulty. It was not particularly easy to run a Bitcoin node. It required a degree of technical acumen, namely the ability to download, compile, and run a piece of open source software on a machine, to be able to configure it and maintain its uptime over time. And while that is pretty easy for somebody who has even basic computer and command line skills, it is basically impossible for someone who does not, right? It's unthinkable, regardless of how easy some IT people think it is. Most people would just never do it. So we set out to offer a product, to build and sell a product that would enable a normal person to, in a few clicks, have a Bitcoin node and to be able to use that Bitcoin node for all their financial activity, and thereby increasing Bitcoin's decentralization and its survivability. Once we realized that that's what we wanted to do, we also quickly realized that if we could do that for Bitcoin, if we could make it easy for somebody to download, configure, own, operate, and maintain a Bitcoin node over time on a server, that we would essentially be solving a broader problem in computer technology, which is the ability to run a server at all and to run any variety of self-hosted open source software on it. So, to give a quick example, rather than just solving the problem so that people could run a Bitcoin node, we solved the problem in a more general sense so that people could use a server to run a Bitcoin node, to run a Lightning node, to run a file server, to run a messaging server, to host their blog, to host their website, to host their e-commerce site. All of these things fundamentally required the same skill set. And we attempted to abstract that skill set into an operating system, a point-and-click graphical operating system that would make it easy for anyone with basic computer skills. And I don't mean command line skills. I just mean the ability to navigate a Windows desktop or a Mac desktop or an iOS or Android phone. Anyone with the ability to administer basic computers would also be able to administer a server, which is a kind of computer that most people have, if they've heard of it, it's always some vague thing that lives somewhere else. Most people have never actually considered running a personal server in their homes for their own purposes. And one of the main reasons for that is because it was very difficult to do. So in solving the Bitcoin node problem, we were also inherently solving the personal server problem, making it easy for people to own and operate personal servers for any purpose. And once we realized that that's the problem that we were solving, we got very, very excited, because if we do solve that problem, not just us, right, but the whole open source world, if we and others make it easy for individuals, families, and small businesses to own and operate a personal server and to use it, to really use it, it would fundamentally restructure the human-computer relationship on Earth, which in turn would fundamentally restructure the political infrastructure to accommodate, right? Most of the regulatory, military and law enforcement apparatuses that exist within the digital sphere assume a central party. They assume a central trusted party. For example, if a company or a government wants to censor you or invade your privacy, they can go to one company and just ask for the information. They can say, tell me everything about this person, or give me, access to this person's camera, for example. And that all assumes that you, the person using the computer or using the camera, is using it through this third party. And therefore the third party is now a security vulnerability for you. And if you run your own server, you have eliminated that vulnerability, right? Somebody would have to physically show up to your house and serve a warrant to get the data that's on your computer, on your server, or the video footage that was collected by your camera, which is more traditional, right? Like that's how warrants used to work in the past, is like if you had something, documents or otherwise, and law enforcement wanted it or a company wanted it, they had to come ask you for it or pay you for it or get a warrant from a judge to obtain it. But once we started shoving everything onto third-party servers, that is no longer necessary. Right? The third-party doctrine introduced by the Patriot Act undermines the Fourth Amendment and says that any piece of data, anything, any conversation, any photograph, any file, anything that you place willingly onto a third-party server, which is pretty much everything you do on a computer, is not subject to Fourth Amendment rights to illegal search and seizure. The government does not need a warrant to get every email, file, and photo you have ever taken from Google. They can just walk into Google and ask for it, and Google will hand it over and not tell you about it. That is the truth. So we're out to fundamentally change that because we think it's undignified, right? It's also extremely dangerous, but it's just undignified. It makes no sense. Anyway, so bit of a tangent there, but there's a high-level introduction.
Yeah, no, and we're totally here for it. I want to kind of rein it back, though, in terms of like Bitcoin. So we have obviously a very Bitcoin-friendly audience here. What role does Start9 play in making Bitcoin use like truly sovereign instead of sort of sovereign until you end up logging into Coinbase? Can you go into that a little bit more for us, just maybe in terms my Meemaw could understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two really important mantras in Bitcoin if you want to, quote, do it right, okay? One is not your keys, not your coins, right? Which means hold your own Bitcoin, okay? If you buy Bitcoin and place it with a custodian, like you buy it on Coinbase and you leave it on Coinbase, Coinbase has the keys to those Bitcoin. You do not. You have to then ask them for permission to withdraw it, to spend it, to sell it. And there's an enormous risk introduced, which is that Coinbase could lose it, okay? And servers, which is where, all of this information lives, are vulnerable. It doesn't matter how many layers of security and how big your cybersecurity team is. Any server that is storing billions and eventually trillions of dollars of wealth is going to get attacked. And it's only a matter of time before the people with the keys to those servers get compromised in one way or another, right? Blackmail, bribery, threats, you name it. The people with the keys will eventually be identified and compromised, and the Bitcoin will go missing. I consider it inevitable that any exchange holding a significant amount of Bitcoin will be hacked. It is inevitable. And so it's very, very insecure to leave your Bitcoin with third parties. And that's number one. And we don't do anything about that. Start9 is not in any way involved in holding your own keys. Those are hardware wallets, right? Those are various forms of self-custody that I would highly recommend everyone interested in Bitcoin research. And they've come a long way. That's a very mature industry. The second key component of being a, quote, true Bitcoiner, doing it right, is running a node. Bitcoin is a network of nodes. It is a peer-to-peer network of connected servers, all running software that conform to the same protocol, the consensus rules of the Bitcoin network. And Bitcoin is what it is. All the value, all the trillions of dollars of value, all the derivatives, the whole reason the US government and everyone else is interested in Bitcoin stems from this root idea that Bitcoin is fundamentally different than a database. It is fundamentally different than anything we have ever seen. And the nature of that fundamental difference is twofold. One is the distributed nature of the peer-to-peer network. And number two is the proof of work mining algorithm and infrastructure. Okay, those are the two things, if I had to cherry pick, that make Bitcoin Bitcoin. And so running a node and also doing some home mining, sure, you know, like home mining is a thing. People buy little miners and you're not going to like make a recurring income on it. Those days are long past, but you could absolutely play the lottery, right? Potentially hit a solo block and have a $300,000, $400,000 payday. Totally KYC, by the way, if you're doing it right into your own node. But that's, you know, kind of less. Running your own node is, in my opinion, almost just as important, not quite, but almost as important as holding your own keys, in that it makes you a sovereign participant of the Bitcoin network. If you are not running your own node, you are using someone else's node. There is no way to use Bitcoin, no way to receive a transaction or send a transaction, to use Bitcoin without using a node. So if you are not using your node, you are using someone else's node. And if you are using someone else's node, you are relinquishing a degree of control, a degree of sovereignty, namely privacy and security. Those are the two things that you are giving up when you use somebody else's node. For example, if you download a Bitcoin wallet onto your phone, open it up, and receive money, and that's all you did. You downloaded it, you opened it up, you popped a QR code, somebody sent you some Bitcoin. When you do that, by default, the wallet on the phone is remotely connecting to a node that is owned and operated by the same people who built the wallet. So when someone sends you money, sends you Bitcoin, it goes through that node and arrives at your phone, which means the wallet developers, the people who built the wallet, know you got that money. They know who sent it to you potentially, they know who you are, and they know how much Bitcoin you have. You have fundamentally relinquished a degree of privacy over your financial life when you download a wallet and just use it. If, however, you download that wallet, you go into the settings menu and you swap out the node. You say, I don't want to use your built-in node that's going through your server. I want to use my own node. And you go into the settings menu and you put in the address to your node. This assumes that you're running a node, right? That was kind of the prerequisite to this whole anecdote. You are already running a node, and we make that easy. That's what we do. If you want to run a node, you come to us. We have free and open source software. You don't need to pay us a dime. You can just download our software, flash it onto an existing laptop or mini PC that you own, and you will be up and running a Bitcoin node in 10 minutes or less. Okay? It's very easy.
Wow.
Many people have been doing it for over 6 years now. We've been in the market. If you don't have an old PC or feel comfortable downloading our free software and flashing it to the computer, you can buy a computer from us, right? It's totally opt-in, totally private. There's no account with us. We just send you the computer with everything, with the operating system pre-installed. You plug it in, push a button, and you're running a Bitcoin node. Now you go download that wallet to your phone. You go into the settings menu. You put in the address of your node, and now you can transact. Someone can send you Bitcoin, you can send them Bitcoin, and there's no third party, no intermediary, nobody on earth knows that you have received Bitcoin or are sending Bitcoin. It is 100% provably private, and you're doing your own validation. You and you alone are your own oracle. You are validating the transactions that you receive. You are not trusting your wallet provider to tell you the truth, because they don't have to, right? If you're using a wallet that you downloaded and just started using, right? You download the wallet and you receive money. You don't actually know. You cannot actually prove in that moment that you received that money. The wallet provider could absolutely have faked it, and you would have no way of knowing unless you did additional research and cross-referenced it with other nodes and block explorers. The surefire way to know that you have received money on the thing that you call Bitcoin is to run your own node and connect your wallet to it. And it's very easy to do, and it's very, very important. And if everyone does it, Bitcoin survives. The essence of Bitcoin survivability above all else is node operatorship, people owning and using their nodes. And we make that easy. That's what we do.
Amazing. Well, I certainly appreciate that breakdown. I know you got a hard out, so we're going to let you go here in a second. But before we do, I'm sure there's plenty of people in our audience that are like, I want to be a sovereign participant in the Bitcoin network and run my own node. What is the best place for them to go to so that they can check out all the things you're doing and then, potentially run their own node like you talked about?
Well, you're showing it on the screen right there. Best place to start is start9.com. I would recommend to anyone considering this to actually look at the reviews that we highlight at the top of the page. When people leave us reviews, they tend to be full pagers and they tend to be raving, and that's not for no reason. It's because most people are shocked when they learn that it's not BS, that they can do this, that they use our software or our hardware products, and within a few minutes time are up and running their own node. Our team is fantastic on the support front. If at any time you feel like you're in over your head or you don't understand something or something isn't working, we have people online 18 hours a day. Our average response time to any and all customer inquiries across all platforms is under 3 minutes for the last 5 years. Wow. You will get a technical, caring human on the line with you in under 3 minutes to help you with your issue. The good news is most people don't have issues. It's that easy. Most people just buy it, download it, run it, use it, and then rave about it. And so check out the reviews and then go to the store if you are interested in buying a device from us. If you already have a mini PC or laptop that has sufficient computing power, go ahead and just download our software for free and spin it up. You can also just buy support from us, right? Like if you do install StartOS on your own computer, you can just buy a lifetime membership to our support channel, which is shockingly cheap for lifetime support for immediate access to a technical expert, $300 for life. It's not going to stay like that forever, by the way. We're not going to be able to afford that at a certain point. It's going to be a lot more expensive. Yeah. You can do that as well. So we are, in essence, a services company. Yes, we sell hardware, but we make open source software that is totally free. And so the only way that we can sustain our business model and really matter into the future is just by being awesome, by providing great customer support and having integrity in everything that we do. And that's what we do.
That's amazing. And Matt, I got to say, thank you so much for your time today. You have such an interesting and informed point of view, and I'm sure our audience agrees. Do you have an X account that you can share with us so that our audience can check out more of your takes? Because I know I'm not the only one out there that would love to learn more about your view of the world. What would be the best place that they could go to follow you?
For sure. So the Start9 Labs account is at Start9 Labs, and my personal account is _MattHill_. There's a great video, a talk that I gave at the Denver Bit Devs meetup a couple of years ago that really digs into why you would want to run your own node, and it provides a good overview of the whole landscape pinned at the top of my feed. So check out that video. It's a great starting point. And yeah, we're always happy to welcome more node operators and quote unquote true Bitcoiners to the world.
Amazing. Well, we certainly appreciate all the efforts that you and your team are putting into towards self-sovereignty for everyone in the future and the Bitcoin network. And next time you have any kind of new product releases or anything, we'd love to have you back on to chat about it. I feel like we could talk with you all day and learn about your more about your informed points of view. So thank you so much for your time today, Matt, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah, I appreciate the platform, and sorry if I threw a wrench into some of the newscasts. I don't want to be like some like, you know, antagonistic, bitter guy. Like, cool, you know, the great things are happening in the Bitcoin world, but I do think it's important that every once in a while people take a step back and think what this is all about, right? Ultimately, this is all about the freedom of our great grandchildren, and that's how long it's going to take. It's nice to have the number go up right now. It's nice to see, you know, people, even powerful people, realizing the potential and importance of Bitcoin, but eye on the prize, eye on the ball. This is about freedom. And it's really important in my mind that we don't sell freedom for the sake of, you know, short-term riches. That would be very sad. So anyway, thank you for hearing me out, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, we appreciate you and your time, Matt, and thanks for fighting for our freedom, brother. We certainly appreciate it, and I hope you have a great weekend. Cheers.
You too. See ya.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we're back, more Blockchain Report underway, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after this break.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
We will be joined today by our first guest of the day, who has seen disruption from every angle. He grew up in Argentina during hyperinflation. He cut his teeth in the music industry when torrents were rewriting the rules, and later shaped narratives at Blockstream right as Bitcoin was stepping into the spotlight. Now, he's building Perception, a platform designed to slice through the noise and deliver real signal in one of the loudest industries on earth, Bitcoin and digital assets. He's here to break down why information is broken and how Bitcoin changes all that, and what comes next for builders, institutions, and anyone trying to keep up. So let's give a big Blockchain Report welcome to Fernando Nikolic, everybody. Welcome to the show, Fernando. We are excited to have you, and so is our audience. How are you this morning?
Super excited to be here as well. Thanks for the invite. Pleasure to meet you.
Oh, likewise. No, it's a pleasure to have you. Really quick, before we jump into today's top news, Fernando, for those people in our audience that might not know you yet, can you just give us a quick rundown of your background and how you found your way into Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. I think the main things is I've always seen disruption pretty closely, as you mentioned in my intro. Being from Argentina, you kind of like exposed to hyperinflation at a super early age. For me personally, that happened at the end of the 80s when I was a kid. Argentina went through a crazy, just a hyperinflationary dumpster fire that led to my mom emigrating to Norway with me. So I essentially grew up outside of my home country and the rest of my family due to hyperinflation. And as I grew up, I came back to Argentina every year to visit my family, and inflation was always a topic of discussion every single time I came back. And for many, many years, going back every single year, that was always a topic. So I was like, what the hell is this thing? Why do people keep talking about it? And why isn't this changing? And obviously tapping into my public education didn't give me any answers. So I started reading books, discovered Austrian economics and whatever, learned exactly what inflation is. And then back in 2017, when a friend of mine introduced me to Bitcoin, kind of clicked in my head pretty instantly due to the monetary properties and how, Bitcoin at least fixes unhinged printing of money from irresponsible governments. So that's my entryway. And I think I was bullish about Bitcoin back then due to those reasons, and I'm still bullish, even more bullish today for the exact same reasons.
I want to talk about your newer endeavor, Perception. What was the spark that made you leave Blockstream and start building this? And for those people that aren't aware of Perception yet, give us a little breakdown as to what it is.
Well, the one-liner is Perception is the intelligence platform for emerging finance. So essentially, I'm tracking everything that's being discussed about Bitcoin, stable coins, tokenized securities, tokenized equities, stuff like that, across the entire internet. And I analyze the sentiment. I discover trends. Well, not I, the platform does. And people that are logging in are able to see exactly what is happening, who is talking about what, and it's only high signal alpha. There's no AI slop, there's no bots, there's no automations being tracked like usually these media monitoring tools do. It only tracks what's worth understanding, and it puts it into perspective, and it's really a 360-degree view on everything that is happening in real time. And I built it myself because, listen, I was VP of Marketing and Communications at Blockstream, which is one of the most legendary Bitcoin companies. And in my day-to-day, I caught myself spending so much time, doom scrolling X, reading like random subreddit threads, setting up Google notifications every time a Blockstream was mentioned in the news. And it was just like such a bad system that took so much time and energy from, more important things that I could do on a daily basis. So I was looking for platforms that could give me the information that I needed, like what's going on right now, who is talking about that, and how is it being perceived? Is it negative slant by mainstream media, whereas this topic is positively slant by social media? And where is that divergence? How does that look like visually? That platform did not exist, so I started gathering the data, which I used to create a newsletter first on the side. And then the feedback was so great from my readers and subscribers that I was just like, hey, this is an opportunity to build something meaningful for the industry, a platform that PR professionals, business development people, comms people, and VCs can actually use, because I got so much good feedback on the information that I was providing on my research reports. So essentially, I took that data that from the research reports and put it into a platform essentially. And after 4 years at Blockstream, it came to the point where I'm like, to hell with it. I gotta go all in on this. And I did, and it's been 2.5 weeks since my last day at Blockstream, and the reception of my announcements, but also people logging in, creating their users, and actually paying for the platform after just 2.5 weeks has been absolutely amazing. So yeah, I'm super pumped. It's definitely feel like I'm building something important for the industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I really admire your level of conviction to go all in. I mean, this is new. 2.5 weeks is a very short amount of time. And Blockstream, like you said, one of the leaders in the industry. We've had Sean Bill on the program before. He's great. We know Adam is great. So you must really feel like this is something that people need, as it sounds like it was something that you needed yourself, which is usually the type of thing that leads to the best ideas out there. To get a little more specific with it, is Perception built for anyone, or is it more aimed toward investors, institutions, builders, or is it just for anybody that's looking to get the most high quality signal out there?
Yeah, I think it's more relevant to people that are in the industry who are looking for specific outcomes and they want to do specific actions, right? So if you are, for example, a PR professional who have a lot of Bitcoin and crypto companies in your client portfolio. You want to track how they are being perceived, who's talking about them, and exactly what, and you want to find talking points and positioning based on that research. So that's for them. If you are in-house business development or corp dev in a company like Strike or Lightspark or Blockstream or River, and you want to find out how payments is being developed in Indonesia, then you go to the platform and you go there directly to see how payments in Indonesia are being perceived. Are they being talked about, or is that a underserved region that maybe you want to bet on? So yeah, it is for people who are in the business who want to have specific outcomes. Obviously, people who are curious, they can sign up for the newsletter. I'll give away a lot of data for free, but this is a professional tool that you need to pay for. So I don't think it's for everybody in that sense, but I think the data is valuable for many different people. And I do my best to share as much as I can outside of the platform through the social media account of Perception, which is at BTC Perception, and the newsletter on bitcoinperception.com.
Amazing. So yeah, we'll have to make sure our audience takes a look at that, and we'll give you a chance to talk about that again at the top of the show, at the end of the show here. I guess my question would be, what makes Perception different than maybe other tools? I know you said this is like the first one you feel like does that what you need it to do. How does perception actually cut through the noise and separate the signal from all the hype that's out there, especially in an industry where everyone's shouting and AI just seems to be taking everything over and it's not always reliable?
Working at Blockstream, and doesn't matter if you're a marketer, if you are a cryptographer, engineer, or work in finance. I think the way Blockstream, the company, is that it teaches you, the longer you work in Blockstream, it teaches you to like look at everything that you build from every angle and try to like look for vulnerabilities, look for weaknesses right away so that you build the most robust solution. And I think one of the core principles of Blockstream's product is that, Liquid Network has never been hacked. The wallet has never been hacked. You have the top of the top engineers and cryptographers working on these things, and they think very adversarially. So I guess that kind of like rubbed off on me. And when I was looking at building this platform, I was like, there's so much like fragmentation and splintering in the media. And people talking either for or against Bitcoin are 9 times out of 10 driven by ideology. Mostly, they don't really talk about Bitcoin from like a net positive or net negative, analysis. So that combined with AI slop and bots and automations and kind of like the dead internet theory kind of like creeping up on us in 2025 led me to like understand like I can't trust the information that is out there, because if I only rely on my timeline on X, I'm being captured by the algorithms, and I see just a fraction of what's really important to know, and I miss out on a lot of important people that have actually valuable things to say to me. But then also, I think 2025 and beyond is going to be extremely difficult for individuals to really get out of the echo chambers or the rabbit holes that they have put themselves in a way, voluntarily, because there's very perverse incentives in play here. Media outlets, the incumbent one, the legacy ones, they are captured by audience, but in a different way. They're captured by the fact that they're losing audience. So they need to double and triple down on, talking points that ensures them, or at least gives them the feeling that they won't lose the already shrinking audience that is kind of like moving on to something else. So they need to just propagandize their talking points, and they can never afford the luxury to pivot on topics. Bitcoin is included, but we're talking about just in general. This could be politics, it can be anything, right? So if the BBC, for example, has a hard-on for Malay in a negative way, you can expect them to talk negatively about Malay no matter what he does. And influencers, just to take the other side of the coin, influencers that are individuals that are building up their audience, they're building up their audience through, I don't know, simple hooks and kind of like well-known methods and techniques. I don't want to call it clickbait, but sometimes it's a necessary evil to bring people in, right? So when you build an audience, you're also building that audience on a certain pretext that I think about X this way, and I think about Y this way. And if you pivot a year or two after, you might lose that audience that you built. So there's audience capture happening everywhere as the entire media landscape is splintering into 1,000 million pieces. And it's impossible for a regular individual to actually get a 360 view in a manual way, having 78 tabs open at the same time in their browser. So let's go to Bitcoin Perception. That will give you the 360-degree view that you need. There's a feature in the platform that tells you how much content has been analyzed for you and how much time you're actually saved in the process. And it's absolutely unbelievable how much time, how many hours you save by just logging in and paying $99 a month. So that's kind of like my way of giving back with what I know, with my experience as leading marketing and communication at a company like Blockstream for the past 4 years is. And I'm already starting to see signals of people appreciating it. So I only hope more people can come through the door and let me know what they think.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing, because you're really solving for what's a relatively new problem that we're encountering in today's world of information, right? Like, it really is now not what's the most relevant and factual info. It's who's the loudest voice in the room or who's got the best hook to get you in. And that's legacy media and, TikTok influencers everywhere now. So to have a platform that truly helps siphon the garbage from the real signal is really a valuable thing in today's world. So I'm so glad you're taking the initiative and built a platform that allows people to do that. That's super important now more than ever with all the misinformation out there. And when I was doing my research about you and your company before the show, I saw something that was interesting. I read something that said you have position perception as providing a 2 to 4 week advantage. Are you able to explain how that works in practice a little bit for us?
So a lot of plans, a lot of intentions are usually communicated publicly, but it doesn't really become a thing unless certain people take action on it or certain things becomes confirmed, a contract, a deal being signed, or just somebody hopping on a bigger platform and doing a proper announcement, whether it is in a conference or on TV or whatever. The fact that I gather everything from comments that is happening in a GitHub repo before it gets merged into I don't know, whether it be Lightning or Liquid or RSK or whatever. All the comments that are happening is being tracked by Bitcoin Perception. And then social media and then communities and then everything where regular people come in and talk and discuss things is being tracked. So the 2 to 4 week advantage is something that obviously it's a range, but if you really want to be opportunistic about a certain opportunity in a certain region that is underserved or not really talked about that much, perception gives you that opportunity to have that insight and know that, hey, something is moving over here in, I don't know, Peru right now. And if you take action on it the moment that you see it on perception, then yeah, you're going to be one of the early ones to actually build that bridge. Imagine if you're a BD and you're, you want people to integrate, to your product or your protocol or whatever, and you see that are people that are talking about a specific pain point that they need a solution for in a region that's underserved, then that's your cue to actually start finding out, more about what is happening in Peru with regards to payments, and then start like a strategic campaign to know more and get in conversations with people and decision makers in that region. So it's that, because a lot of people that are doing business development and corporate development, or even people that are writing stories, they start to write the story or they start to reach out to people just after somebody else does it. When they see that this region is getting traction because a lot of people are starting to do something there, that's 80% of the people in general. With perception, you can be part of the 20% that actually are the first movers and get a first mover advantage based on that information. So I think it's super important that people know where to look, but it's really, really hard to do that manually these days. Unless you have a vast network where you can, message somebody on Telegram, who is a person that knows everybody in Malaysia, for example. But unless you have that contact, perception is your go-to to get like a clean, neutral information served on a silver platter effectively, and for you to have the freedom to take action on it or not. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we're at an age where information moves seemingly instantaneously. I can message someone across the world like that. So the idea of having this potentially 2 to 4 week advantage of getting factual information from the ground floor of events before they become completely mainstream is such a significant advantage in what's really becoming an information and attention economy. So I absolutely understand the importance of, of what you're building, and that's really incredible. Our time is running a little short here, Fernando, but before we get going, I want to make sure our audience out there has an opportunity to learn more about you and perception. Is there like a free trial, what's the best place for them to sign up and learn more about this really incredible product that you've built?
Thank you so much, man. If you want to check out the platform right now, you go to perception.to and you can sign up for a 7-day free trial. That's the website right there. Just hit the start button and then you're on your way. If you want to just follow the data, get the content, and start that way. You can go to bitcoinperception.com or btcperception.com, sign up for the newsletter, and receive, quarterly reports and, essentially research reports. Whenever I see something interesting, I create content around that. And then BTC Perception on X, to follow, social media, right there. So there's a lot of content, a lot of high signal alpha that I share on all channels. But obviously, if you want to take a look yourself and see what the actual platform has to offer, perception.to is your best bet.
Amazing. Well, Fernando, I got to say, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so great learning more about you and Perception. It sounds incredible. I'll be signing up for my free trial right after the show. I can't wait to check it out. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, my friend. Thanks again for hanging out with us today.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on, man. Great chatting with you.
Likewise, pleasure was all mine. All right, we'll see you sometime soon, hopefully. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, we have our second round of guests from the day. We have the guys over at H100 to talk about Bitcoin treasury strategies and what to expect about those in the future. You won't want to miss it, so stay tuned. More Blockchain Report right after this.
In a world far away. Nah, just kidding. This story begins in this world. It all started in 1460 in Antwerp, when the first commodities exchange was created, but the real transformation came in 1602, when the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded. Considered the oldest in the world, it was the first to trade financial assets. Over the years, Britain expanded its colonial and maritime influence, and the British pound sterling overtook the Dutch guilder in the market. Thus, the London Stock Exchange became the financial centre of the world. The 20th century came, and the world got into some trouble. But shortly after World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, and the center of the planet moved to Wall Street. Today, we're traveling at the speed of light towards a new age, an era shaped by the consolidation of Bitcoin as the currency that will define the future of the markets. We present Roxom, a new Bitcoin-denominated market that allows trading all sorts of securities, commodities, derivatives, options, and anything you can imagine. Roxom, rock-solid markets.
All right, so now we're in with our deep dive with Joe Consorti. Joe, I want to talk a little bit about your company, Horizon. Okay, so for the uninitiated out there, can you just break down what it is and pretend you're explaining it to your neighbor who still thinks Bitcoin is that thing that criminals use to buy drugs online?
Well, it's a good order of direction because most of my neighbors do think that. So Horizon essentially is a brand new, first of its kind platform that allows homeowners to stack Bitcoin using their home equity. Now, it differs from other existing solutions for a couple of reasons, and I'll list them off here. Number one, it has no monthly payments. It has no interest charges. It has no term limits, and also it is no take in the Bitcoin upside. And to package that all together, it's also not a debt instrument. It really is a brand new and pretty unique financial vehicle that allows homeowners to tap their trapped equity without adjusting their lifestyle and put it into an asset like Bitcoin, which, as I mentioned, has been the best performing major macro asset of the last 12 years. And so ultimately, the problem we're trying to solve is people are more cash poor than ever, right? You look at average home price in the United States today, you take the median home price, it's like $501,000. You pair that with 6.5% interest rates, and someone who may just be getting out of school, who may have been renting for 3 or 4 years, they may have found the woman of their dreams, they just got married, they want to have children, they want to raise a family, they look at a home, and earning the median salary in the United States of $70,000, thereabouts, $80,000, you cannot afford to own a home, right? With the numbers I just mentioned, you're looking at a $4,500, $5,000, $6,000 monthly payment after tax. Your salary doesn't cover that. And so you have to have your wife work as well, or vice versa. And so ultimately what you have is young people more than ever cannot go and buy a home. You also flip that on its head and you take a look at existing homeowners, right? Post 2020. homes got massively revalued, right? The home my mother was living in went from like 800,000 to $1.3 million. And I'll tell you, she didn't make a single change to it, right? Original everything. Yet suddenly it's $500,000 more valuable. What that does is it makes it so that your property taxes go up, your insurance payments go up, and suddenly the home that you were living in, you can't afford anymore. And to add on top of all of that, there are assets that you want to buy that you just don't have the cash flow to buy anymore, namely Bitcoin. People have seen Bitcoin, since the bottom in 2020 go from $3,000 to a height of $124,200. But they don't have any ability to allocate to it. They don't have any ability to create a treasury for themselves. And so where Horizon steps in is we allow homeowners who are in that situation, they may be sitting on a great deal of equity, but they don't have the ability to go and allocate to Bitcoin. Or even if they do, they just want to put their trapped equity into something else. Horizon allows homeowners to do that. So we're really excited about the platform. Over the last 3 months, it's done extremely well. We're scaling every single day, helping homeowners every single week. We have really exciting news in the horizon that I can't wait to potentially come back on the show at some point over the next month or two and share. But essentially we are, I talked about financial nihilism, financial optimism. Ultimately, the future we're building for is making it so that homeowners in the United States feel secure about their finances. Bitcoin being the best performing macro asset of the last 12 years, being the best hedge to the problem we're currently facing as a country, Horizon allows homeowners to efficiently create a Bitcoin treasury for themselves so that they can feel comfortable in their own home again.
I love that. I mean, I don't want any of my wives to ever have to go to work to afford our home. I mean, I don't have multiple wives, but a man can dream, right? Now, I would love for you to kind of walk us through that process a little bit. Pretend I'm 5, and if I own $1 million home, and I want to pull 100 grand and put it into Bitcoin, what does that process actually look like?
Absolutely. So essentially, the process is extremely simple. All a homeowner will have to do, and I'll take this from the homeowner's perspective. I'm an interested homeowner. I have $1 million home. All I do is go to joinhorizon.com, type in my address, plug in my property details, my property value, my mortgage balance. In this case, you mentioned $100,000. You go through the process, and we actually have a really neat calculator that shows you how much you're pulling out of your home and what it will be given different growth rate assumptions over time on both the home and the Bitcoin. So let's say you plug in 15 years. I want to stay in the home for 15 years. I'm going to take $100,000 out of my home today to buy Bitcoin with it. You can actually see, based on Bitcoin's annual growth rate, that you can set yourself what that will be worth 15 years from now and what your contract payoff is going to be. So from there, the process is very simple. You click Get Started. You schedule a call with one of our team members. We hop on a call with you. We discuss your situation, what you're looking to do, and we walk you through the process. The process is extremely simple. It goes as such. So in this case, drawing $100,000 out of your home, about 10 days to 2 weeks from that call. It's extremely quick and efficient. You can have, if the numbers match up with what you put into the calculator, that $100,000 tax-free to go and buy Bitcoin, right? This is a non-taxable event. You go take that 100 grand, put it into Bitcoin, and then that's it. It sounds extremely straightforward and simple, and it sounds like there's a catch, but there isn't, right? In exchange for that $100,000, which represents 10% of the property's value, the home equity investor receives a commensurate stake in the future value of the home. And then from there, you just sit on it. It sits neatly within your home's existing financing structure. If you have a mortgage, if you don't have a mortgage, there are no monthly payments. It's something you can genuinely just do and set and forget. And then you could settle up at any time, whether it's 15 years down the line or Bitcoin goes crazy in the next 12 years and you decide to settle up, you can do whatever you'd like to do. So you can voluntarily settle up, or when you sell the home, you can settle up at that stage. And at that point, you pay down your contract, which is just that percentage of the future value of the property. And that's it. There's no taking the Bitcoin upside. It's extremely simple, extremely efficient. And yeah, that is the process, end to end, front to back. And we really feel that this is the innovation that the home equity market needed desperately. There's $35.7 trillion worth of home equity in the United States. Over 50% of that is tappable. So ultimately, this is a huge addressable market, and one that there have been no clear on-ramps directly into Bitcoin. At Horizon, we've built that on-ramp.
Wow, what an interesting tool. I did do a little bit of research on it before we had you on the show today. I was peeking around Horizon's website, and I saw that you guys cap its share at 22.5% of future value. Why that kind of oddly specific number? And how does that stack up against traditional equity sharing products that get greedier over time?
Absolutely. Ultimately, with Horizon, what we aim to do is keep it very conservative. Ultimately, people have been burned tremendously by these crypto platforms of the past. I mentioned them earlier, Celsius, FTX, BlockFi, and others. Ultimately, what we want to do is play extremely conservative, right, when it comes to what people can draw out, and ultimately the maximum percentage stake in someone's property that we will take out. This differs a little bit from HELOCs and reverse mortgages, both of which have interest charges and fixed terms. HELOCs obviously have monthly payments. Reverse mortgages sometimes do not, because ultimately we don't want to be predatory, right? We don't want, this wonderful product on its face to have a million different lines in this legal document that are, 6-point or 7-point text that people have to read through, and then at the end of the day, they're coming out in a worse spot than before. Ultimately, like, we want to make it so that people can transform their equity into Bitcoin and not have to worry about a million different other things, hidden fees, interest charges, other things like that. And so ultimately, while it does allow you to draw on less of your equity, we're doing that for the benefit of the homeowner. One of the biggest points of feedback we've received is they wish they could draw on more, but we've intentionally kept it low, so as to make sure that everything is square and that homeowners are taken care of, so that they don't end up in a situation where they're in a contract that they don't understand, or there are a bunch of hidden fees that they weren't privy to, but now they have to pay. We want to make it as transparent and smooth as possible through the whole process, and as conservative as possible, despite what as I just mentioned, many of the homeowners I'm speaking to who just want to take more out.
Right, and I got to imagine when you're talking to these homeowners, there's got to be at least a couple that love the doomsday angle, right? And they say, what if Bitcoin tanks right after I use Horizon? Like, how do you walk nervous homeowners through that risk trade-off without sounding like a total moon boy?
Absolutely. So obviously, like, Bitcoin going to zero, that's the primary risk with Horizon, right? Ultimately, what Horizon homeowners are doing is they're making this trade that they believe in. The trade is that they believe their home will appreciate slower than Bitcoin will appreciate over any given investment duration, right? Your investment duration can be as short as you want or as long as you want until you pass away, right? And so ultimately, like, the scenario of Bitcoin going to zero or Bitcoin doing worse in the home, that's the primary risk of Horizon. Walking folks through basically this conservative approach to what Bitcoin may do over the next several years, it's kind of neat because that's what I've been doing over the last several years anyway. I'm very blessed to have been trained in markets by Nick Bhatia over at USC. He is a very non-sensationalist guy, came from a fixed income trading background. And so thankfully, I've never come from the angle of Bitcoin's going to be $1 million tomorrow. And so when homeowners come to me with that concern, what happens, if Bitcoin doesn't do very well, I can take them through what Bitcoin is and chances are why it may continue to do what it does in a very measured and understandable way. Generally speaking, most homeowners that are coming to us are already Bitcoiners, and so they're already on the train. Most of what they're concerned about is just the way that the contract works. But in those edge cases where I do get on calls with homeowners who may not be privy to Bitcoin or may not understand it necessarily, thankfully, over the last several years of work and research and writing, I have the tools in my toolkit to be able to walk them through why that doomsday scenario, generally speaking, is pretty unlikely.
Yeah, I actually checked out. I wish we had more time to talk about it. You have a really great blog, too, that I think answers a lot of these questions that people tend to have in what's a new and kind of unfounded space. But based on everything you're telling me, this is a product the world needs. So I'm certainly glad we have a steward like you helping drive this type of innovation forward, especially in the Bitcoin arena. If our audience out there was interested, they said, man, I just didn't get enough of Joe during this. I want to learn more about you and what you guys are doing over at Horizon. Where can I send them?
Absolutely. So you can go to joinhorizon.com, exactly how it's spelled. It's a great name for a company because it's in most Bitcoiners' vernacular anyway. So joinhorizon.com. And you can also find me on X, just at Joe Consorti, the same way my name is spelled. I lucked out on getting that handle as well. Feel free to jump on a call with me at any time. You can plug in your home value, see what your home's Bitcoin potential may be, and take it from there.
Amazing. Well, Joe, I got to thank you so much for coming on to the show today and sharing your insight and expertise. When you got some new stuff at Horizon you want to talk about, please join us back on the show every time. You are an absolute wealth of knowledge and information. So we certainly appreciate you and your time today. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hank, for having me on. I had a blast and hope to do this again soon.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Joe. We'll catch you real soon, buddy. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
All right, we're back with our deep dive with ANDRÉ DRAGOSCH of Bitwise. Now, ANDRÉ, I want to get a little bit into your background a little bit. You're a super interesting guy. You've got a PhD in financial history, which sounds like you were basically trained to tell us why every bubble eventually pops. How did that academic background lead you into crypto and eventually Bitcoin? What was your orange pill story like?
So I think the advantage from my PhD studies is like you get to know financial history, of course, and in my case, you study like the banking system, right? How the banking system works, how money is created. You have to find out where money is coming from, right? Like these essential questions. And the more you know about like our modern fiat monetary system, I think the more bullish you become for Bitcoin, right? Because I think in order to understand the utility of Bitcoin, you need to understand the monetary system first. Because I think if you ask an average guy on the street how like the monetary system and the banking system operates, they'll probably tell you something like, most of the money is printed by the government, right? Or maybe central bank. But the truth is, the majority of the money supply is actually created in the commercial banking system via bank lending, right? It's created out of nothing. With every extension of a loan, right? For real estate, for any kind of stuff, for consumer purposes. So that's actually the advantage of doing a PhD, because you get to do a deep dive on like how the monetary system works. And I think what also many people still don't get, unfortunately, is like the utility of Bitcoin is not that it's like a new kind of PayPal, right? It's not primarily supposed to be a means of exchange, right? It's, I think, primarily supposed to be a stored value, but also like this combination of being a superior means of exchange combined with the stored value characteristic, like that's making Bitcoin special, and that's the innovation of Bitcoin. So it's like a PayPal combined with gold, digital gold. Some people call it digital gold for that reason, and that's the innovation of Bitcoin. And I think if you don't understand where money comes from, it's hard to understand the utility of Bitcoin. But I think we're slowly getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're thankful we have well-educated people like yourself helping people understand how to get there, because it seems like there's a lot of folks out there that are still having a hard time wrapping their head around why it's important. But we're all doing our best to kind of orange pill the world one person at a time, including what you guys are doing over at Bitwise, which I would love to talk about now, as you all manage over $10 billion across crypto ETFs, ETPs, and private funds. Now, for some people in our audience who only know Bitwise as that math thing they forgot after high school, how do you explain what Bitwise does in just a few sentences that anybody could understand?
So Bitwise is a crypto asset manager. So we manage around 15 billion US dollars in assets under management in so-called ETPs, exchange traded products, which includes ETFs, exchange traded funds, which are regulated securities traded on traditional exchanges that have 100% Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other crypto asset as underlying, right? So you can trade Bitcoin like a traditional security, and it's 100% secured with the underlying Bitcoins, right? And what we also do, which is also special among any kind of crypto asset manager, is we do publish our on-chain addresses, especially for Bitcoin and Ethereum. So you can always check whether the underlying holdings in the ETP, in the ETF, are really there. You can check it on chain, right, on the blockchain. And so, yeah, Bitwise is a crypto asset manager, and we manage around 50 billion assets under management in combined, right, across the whole group in both US and Europe.
Awesome, amazing. I appreciate that breakdown. I think everyone at home got that. You guys were listening, they got it. So, ANDRÉ, you're currently the head of research for Europe at Bitwise. What does that actually look like? Is it spreadsheets, charts, and caffeine, or is it more like convincing regulators that Bitcoin isn't a Ponzi scheme? What is your day-to-day like?
So it's definitely lots of caffeine.
Yeah.
But yeah, my day-to-day looks like not so much spreadsheets, but lots of R scripts and coding, of course, analyzing data, on-chain data, but also like traditional financial data, macro data. Mostly Bitcoin because it's the dominant asset, but also Ethereum, Solana, and others. But yeah, our main job is to write reports essentially about market developments. We have a weekly report, a monthly macro focus report, but also ad hoc reports on like important developments, ad hoc developments, which are called espressos. So we publish a bunch of espressos and reports, and also deep dives on like single tokens. We collaborate with the research colleagues on bigger deep dives and reports, such as the very latest report about Bitcoin long-term capital market assumptions, which is like a piece about the expected returns for Bitcoin over the next 10 years. So it's definitely worth reading. And yeah, that's what we do.
Love it. You're doing God's work over there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe Bitwise is one of the first firms to really push crypto ETFs and ETPs into mainstream finance. So I guess my question would be, why do you think the ETF wrapper has been such a game changer for Bitcoin adoption? Is it letting people in TradFi kind of dip their pool into or foot into the Bitcoin waters without going full on in, or what are your thoughts?
I think Bitcoin ETFs actually supercharged adoption, especially in the US, right? Because, I mean, the US economy is hyper financialized, right? I think many retail households, 50%, so half of retail households, they own financial securities, right? Like stocks, bonds, and so on. So that's very high ownership of financial assets in general in the US. And compare that to the retail adoption pre-ETF approval, so pre-January 2024, it was lower than 20%, right? But I think with the ETF approval in 2024, what you've seen is like the adoption was supercharged because you're suddenly opening up that gate to all these retail households that own, like, every second household holds any kind of financial asset, right? So you're opening up these gates, and suddenly they have simple access to Bitcoin via an ETF through their traditional brokerage accounts. So that's why I think it will supercharge adoption, because that 20% adoption rate, retail adoption rate, suddenly converges towards 50%, which is like the average stock ownership rate, right, per household. So I think, definitely supercharged adoption.
Yeah, it's really been incredible just this year to see how fast things are moving and how supercharged things have been, despite the fact we're not going parabolic percentage-wise in price the same way. But, we're at 6 digits now, and, you told me 10 years ago, there's no way I would have thought we'd be at this point in Bitcoin's journey now. But here we are. And it seems to be that everybody is getting on board at this point. I mean, Harvard, for instance, their endowment fund now owns more Bitcoin ETFs than they do gold, which begs the question that, do you see university endowments, pensions and other slow-moving giants as kind of the next big wave of adoption for Bitwise products?
I think so. I mean, we talked about this previously. I think as Bitcoin is becoming a mainstream asset, it will end up in every portfolio eventually. So it will be in pension funds, it will be in 401ks, right? We've just seen the executive order that's actually enabling this. It will be in hedge funds, traditional hedge funds, crypto hedge funds, family office portfolios, and so on. So, and there's definitely a case for it because, I mean, the era of easy money, what it has done is actually it compress all kinds of expected returns. So it increased valuations. Like if you look at the valuation of the S&P 500, it's at like all-time record, right? Across the multiple of valuation metrics, right? If you look at PEs or price to book or anything, it's like all-time record. So that's like a consequence of easy money, right? And I think there's definitely a case for pension funds and others, like asset managers in general, to diversify because like record valuations on the flip side mean you have very low expected returns. I think based on our projections, I mean, you can look at others like Goldman as well. It's in the low single digits per year performance in nominal terms over the next 10 years, right? Like 3 to 4% nominal. But what is like the average inflation rate per year going to be over the next 10 years? Nobody knows. There's high uncertainty because, I mean, we can talk about like the prospects for US monetary policy, but in my view, I think we're probably looking at an era of like deeply negative real rates again, right? Because if inflation really starts to re-accelerate, but the next Fed chair will be like a super dove and keep rates low or even lower, right? That means ultimately means you'll have deeply negative real rates. And so that's like a new kind of era of financial repression. So we're probably moving towards this kind of scenario again, right? And what's benefiting the most from financial repression, right, is hard assets like Bitcoin, like gold, and so on.
Yeah. And we are in this new era right now. And I think that goes, you could kind of spin that a lot of different ways. But the way I'm thinking about it right now is for Bitcoin, we're at this place where I think there's a lot of retail that is apprehensive to buying into Bitcoin, aside from the ETFs, but buying into Bitcoin directly, because we're at this 6-digit price that seems really high right now. A lot of people are feeling, I already missed the boat, right? It's too late for me. So I'm talking, family offices, even some high net worth clients. At Bitwise, or someone who works at Bitwise, what do you think the pitch is for adding a slice of Bitcoin to someone's portfolio today, especially when that price was as high as 124 just a week or two ago, and now we're down to 110? What would you tell them?
So it's always about the long-term projects. I mean, if you establish prospects for return prospects, right, for Bitcoin, because if you add a strategic allocation to your portfolio, to your multi-asset portfolio, you'll add it for the long term, right, not for the short term. So if you look at these portfolio studies, I mean, the obvious reasons are it tends to increase your Sharpe ratio, so your risk-adjusted return, which means your portfolio will become more efficient in terms of you will get a higher reward for the same amount of risk, or you will get lower risk for the same amount of reward, right? So it's more efficient. It makes sense to add Bitcoin to your portfolio. So there are definitely economic reasons there, but there are also macro reasons, right? I mean, one of the key macro reasons is it adds diversification, especially with respect to US Treasury bonds. And what we've seen, especially this year in 2025, is like the correlation between US Treasury bonds, the 10-year Treasury bond, and Bitcoin has become the most negative ever. So that's like a highly inverse correlation between Bitcoin and US Treasury bonds, which means if you add Bitcoin to your bond portfolio or multi-asset portfolio that includes bonds, it will diversify, right? your bond risk. And in general, what we've seen, like even compared to gold, Bitcoin appears to be not only a better diversifier compared to gold with respect to US Treasury bonds, but also it tends to be better downside hedge. Like if you look at any kind of down day for US Treasury bonds, what you see is Bitcoin is up on many more days than gold is, right, on US Treasury down days. So it even outperforms gold in terms of being like a downside hedge for US Treasury bonds. So that's definitely a case for Bitcoin in a traditional portfolio. It's not so much a hedge against like equity downside risk, although we've seen early signs of this during like the Liberation Day crash, right, in April. But like if you look at the full sample, right, Bitcoin price performance, then it tends to be better bond hedge, especially for US Treasury bonds, than an equity hedge.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And to our audience at home, this guy has a PhD in financial history and is the head of research at Bitwise Europe. So listen to him. For the love of God and the love of Satoshi, it will behoove you to do so. So I know we're running out of time here, André, but before we go, you have such a robust past and history of knowing financial history and knowing what's happening. And I know you yourself are an educator by the very nature of what you do. And I believe you have a book coming out or something that, can you tell us a little bit about that? I'm sure there's people in our audience that are listening and like, okay, he's got a PhD in financial history. I should listen to this guy who would be super interested in knowing what your book is about and maybe getting their own copy. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, of course. So the book is called Exponential Gold. It's also available on Amazon. And it's supposed to be an institutional investor's guide to Bitcoin and crypto assets. And of course, it's catered to an institutional audience, but there's, I think, an interesting chapter about monetary history, of course, and like how the banking system works, which is definitely valuable. And also valuation section about Bitcoin, a section about altcoins, how it actually refers to investing into Bitcoin and vice versa. And Bitcoin, there's also a chapter on Bitcoin treasury companies, the difference between ETPs and self-custody and so on. So it's definitely worth a read.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it's hitting on a lot of the most important and prevalent narratives in the Bitcoin space happening right now. So you said that people can check this out on Amazon, then get their copy, or
Yes,
is there a
exactly.
personal website they should go to?
Yes, you can check it out on Amazon. Just look for Exponential Gold. You'll find it.
All right, beautiful. We'll have to make sure to check that out ourselves. And André, we do one thing at the end of this show before we let you go, is we are keeping a up-to-date chart of everybody's Bitcoin price predictions for the very end of this year. This is not any kind of financial advice. This is just your thoughts as an expert in this space. What do you think that Bitcoin will be at by the end of 2025? What's your guess? We're going to put it on a board and revisit it next time we have you back on the show. So what are your thoughts? And give us a little
So base case is $200K dollars by the end of the year. The reason is, like, from a pure seasonality perspective, Q4 is the strongest performance quarter for Bitcoin. So I mean, August, September, on the other hand, they're one of the worst month for Bitcoin performance-wise. So there's not much happening in August and September anyway. But like Q4 tends to be the strongest quarter. So I'd expect Bitcoin to rally in Q4. And one of the key reasons is probably the 401k executive order, which is unleashing a huge amount of capital. I mean, if you even take tiny percentages of like the current assets under management in 401ks and other defined contribution plans in the US, like that 12.2 trillion assets in 401ks and other defined contribution plans. And even if you take like 1% of that amount and which is substituted with Bitcoin ETFs, you will end up with $122 billion, which is a significant amount for the whole Bitcoin ETP market globally. It's around 63% of like global Bitcoin ETP assets. And based on historical relationships, like a 1% increase in global Bitcoin ETP AUM, assets under management, is roughly associated with a 1% performance in Bitcoin. So even by this, like by a very tiny reallocation of these 401ks and other retirement plans, you'll see that Bitcoin will probably approach 200K. But if you assume that we'll see a continuation of the Fed's rate cutting cycle, even more so, right? So, yeah.
200K. Okay, so that's your base case. Now I want you to give me an exact number. And mind you, we're having other people do this as well. And whoever wins it, I'm sending them a Roxom Patagonia. So we had yesterday, for instance, we had someone try to Price Is Right it. They said $200,001. Do you want to stay at 200K or do you want to revise it to something a little bit different? I don't want you to get trapped.
So official prediction is 200K, but I'd say probably a bit more conservative. I'd say 172.
172, let's mark it on the board, guys. All right, Andre, well, I got to say thank you so much for your time and patience today. It's been an absolute blast having you on the show. We hope to have you back sometime soon because I could talk to you all day. I mean, PhD in financial history, guys. What else do you want? And you came with the numbers to back up your predictions too, which I just love. So thank you so much for your time today. And really quick, before we let you go, do you have a great X account or something we can send our audience to get more of your takes about what's going on in the Bitcoin space?
Yes, sure. You find me on Twitter with @ANDRÉ_DRAGOSCH.
Perfect. You guys heard it here first from the doctor himself. Well, Andre, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And it should be dinner time around where you're at in Frankfurt. So I hope you have a great evening.
That's
and
true.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. See you again soon. Well, gang, and that's a wrap for another week here at the Blockchain Report. As always, thanks for tuning in. And if you haven't already, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV. And remember, we'll be back next week on our new time on Mondays only from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time. But the rest of the week, we're at our 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. time slot here, PST, at RoxomTV. So as always, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you all next week for more blockchain bedlam and crypto chaos. Until then, sayonara.
Security matters. Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
In a world far away. Nah, just kidding. This story begins in this world. It all started in 1460 in Antwerp, when the first commodities exchange was created, but the real transformation came in 1602, when the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded. Considered the oldest in the world, it was the first to trade financial assets. Over the years, Britain expanded its colonial and maritime influence, and the British pound sterling overtook the Dutch guilder in the market. Thus, the London Stock Exchange became the financial centre of the world. The 20th century came, and the world got into some trouble. But shortly after World War II, The Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, and the center of the planet moved to Wall Street. Today, we're traveling at the speed of light towards a new age, an era shaped by the consolidation of Bitcoin as the currency that will define the future of the markets. We present Roxom, a new Bitcoin-denominated market that allows trading all sorts of securities, commodities, derivatives, options, and anything you can imagine. Roxom, rock-solid markets.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin?